Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. It is so good to have you with us. What a joy to be seeing you again on a Tuesday for our Kannico webinar. These are like clockwork. Woo! I think I've missed one, right? Because I was on a plane or something. I can't remember. But um, anyway, it is so good to have you all with us. Really excited about the topic today. And, we do these webinars every month faithfully. We're open to anyone. Hopefully, the topics are relevant across the board, no matter what state you're in, no matter what country you're in. There's always a nugget you can take away. So I am Kirsten Stevens. I'm your host, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So today we have Todd Rowley, who is the Director of Nonprofit Business from Old Dominion National Bank. He's going to be talking to us about AI readiness. Remember, this was more of an AI strategy. That's why we had said no tech degree required. So rather than get into technical aspects, it's really more about the strategy of your organization as you seek to adopt AI practices. So Todd's going to come on in just a moment. In the meantime, you all know me very well. I know many of you very well. My passion is in this sector. I am in it 100%. I'm all about how you all can get better, you can improve, and how can we can help elevate you and boost you up to make a greater impact. And let me tell you a little bit about Todd. I have a lengthy bio for him, but he's given me permission to give you a little bit of a summary, and I'm going to do that now. All right. So, Todd is a banking leader with more than 40 years of experience. He is currently the president for Central Virginia. And am I showing the correct screen, by the way? I didn't ask.
Yes, you are.
Yep. Fantastic. Thank you. He's the president for Central Virginia and director of business development and nonprofit business at Old Dominion National Bank. His career includes senior roles at Wells Fargo, Capital One, and United Bank, where he was known for both financial expertise and advising CEOs on leadership and strategy. He is a recognized voice in the regional economy, serves on the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond's Fifth District Advisory Council, and contributes to the Fed's Beige Book. He is he has helped establish a 4-year cybersecurity degree program in his work with Virginia Tech Pamplin School of Business, which is pretty impressive. Holds a degree from an MBA from Virginia Tech and a graduate degree in banking finance. And he also serves on the boards of Lead Virginia and the Charlottesville Chamber of Commerce. So happy to have you with us today, Todd. It really is special for us to have someone that not only have we worked with, you and I have collaborated on a couple of nonprofit projects, hopefully more to come, but just your wisdom in this space, we're very grateful for. So thank you.
Well, I'm
I'm going to let you jump in, Todd.
well. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'd say serving. If you go, I hope you go onto my LinkedIn, you'll find that I over the years and still currently serve on a lot of non-paying jobs. I serve on a number of boards, and from that, support a number of nonprofit boards and 501c3, C6s, foundation, trust, and I enjoy it because often people are helped by or try to be helped by banks that don't really understand the balance sheet of an income statement of a nonprofit. They don't understand, what cash balance to net worth. They don't understand, the recognition of revenue over 12 cycles. All those little things that it's important for
Mm.
your financial person to understand. But today is a non-technical discussion. As Kirsten said, my background is banking, and for the fun of it, and I always joke it's because my golf game is terrible. I take classes, and I have for the last 10 years in technology. It has nothing to do with my day job, and my IT guys remind me of that. I'm not the IT guy here. I've taken classes over the last 10 years in coding, cloud, cyber, most recently AI. I'm Amazon certified in cloud. I'm DHS and NSA certified in cybersecurity, and recently I've passed two certifications in AI. And I say all that uh, with the kind of the umbrella that AI, as it stands right now, the use of it non-technical for those of us that I'm not an IT, I don't have a degree in engineering. The use of AI to make the organizations run more efficiently to get more productivity is kind of what we're talking about today, and maybe a few of the areas where people have used it and kind of gone down the wrong rabbit hole, maybe, and how to avoid that. So I could, kind of go to the first or second slide if I can, and we can kind of go through. I'll go through these. I've got about 12 slides. I'll go through them very quickly because I'd love to have this more of a dialogue with participants on what they're seeing, what they're concerned about, and maybe some of the things that I've seen from the companies that I have taken care of, and their successes and some of their challenges with AI. So if I could, Meg, if you could, start maybe on the first or second slide, that'd be great.
Todd, let me ask a quick question. Are you
Sure.
comfortable with questions along the way as they pop up, or would you prefer we save them till the end?
I always, and I get guest lectures at Tech and UVA and George Mason and others. I love it when they come up because that's the most relevant time.
Agreed.
So
Excellent.
know,
So
yeah.
yeah,
So
put your
yeah,
question in
I
the chat or raise a hand or something, and Todd will get to your question.
yeah. If somebody can manage that on your side, I'll pitch on my side.
Perfect. Perfect.
Good.
Fantastic.
Um, I think one of the things, and if we can go to the next slide, Meg, that'd be great. There we go. I think one of the opportunities for nonprofits is, in this arena right now where AI is, and there's many platforms of AI out there. Some serve different purposes. So whether you're using Copilot or Gemini or Grok or any of the other ones, it's more of finding a platform that gives you the most comfort, because if you don't like using it, you're not going to use it. And I think one of the things you can get out of using AI as a nonprofit, and I hear this from a lot of my executive directors and presidents of nonprofits, and you see it on all of you probably see it as a line item on your uh, annual reports, is your accountants say, oh, they don't have dual control. Well, you don't have enough staff to have dual control. It's always kind of more with less. Your boards are never going to give you, sometimes the resources you need, and sometimes you're going to have to do with, what you have. And I think one thing that AI does is it allows you to kind of be a force multiplier of your staff. It allows you to a more efficient use of your time. You can get to your decisions faster, and you can scale your deliveries to your members without having to scale costs, because in many times the AI tools out there, they're free, they're available, and so they're just waiting to be used. So they got to be used correctly. But I think that's the key, is a force multiplier. So go to the next one, please.
I have a quick question on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So broadly speaking, then, especially looking at that graph, if it are we at risk of falling behind if we are not implementing in some way? And I mean falling behind from many different, like just simply other organizations getting to donors before we do, getting our message out sooner. Is there a risk at this point, or is it still, can you kind of keep up if you're not using AI?
That's a great question. I think right now we're still in the beta phase. They don't know what they don't know yet, and I
Mm,
think it's a time also to experiment. You can you
mm,
can you can you can dabble in AI and use the things that you think are the most effective for you, the most efficient for you, without doing putting all your chips all in, right?
yes,
And I think
yes.
and so using it now is going to probably keep you ahead of a number of, and I hate the word the competitor, but everybody's chasing that same donation dollar, right? and I think he or she that gets there the right way the quickest. And
Mm,
I think the other side of that is donor fatigue, right? I mean,
mm.
we all going back to the same donor over and over too many times, and we're going to them. And I'll kind of address this in a later slide without really any message that is relevant for that donor. Is that fair?
Yes, yes, 100%. Yeah, and when you say going after the same donor dollars, that's from the overall donor pool, not the same donor specifically, like multiple organizations going after the same donor, but it's the
Exactly.
pool of funds available to nonprofits. The other quick point, you mentioned dual control. When you say dual control, you mean from an accounting perspective, from a financial management checks and balances perspective, having two people, someone's managing
Yes.
deposits, someone's managing the books, there are controls for those processes. Okay, just making sure.
Exactly. It's the banking side of dual control. With one person, organizes the wire, somebody else, submits the ACH. Those kind of things. You just don't have enough personnel sometimes,
That's
to
right.
cover all those bases. And it's something that all the CPA firms know and they acknowledge, but they'll still put the ding in the management letter.
That's right. Exactly. And yet AI could free up some of the time to
Exactly.
be able to, yeah. Okay.
Exactly right. And some
Fantastic.
of those AI tools, which is good for the attendees to think about, some of those AI tools you can push back to the banks. I mean, a lot of the AI efforts of banks implementation, especially with things like positive pay or ACH transfers, banks are putting that in not only for efficiencies for our customers, but we're doing it for the financial security that fraud protection, fraud
Yes.
protection from
Yes.
fraud protection.
Yes. That's funny. That was one of my later questions for you was the implementation on the banking side. So banks are implementing AI actively as well.
Exactly,
Wow.
exactly,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and we'll get into that. We can get into that now. I mean, the great question now, thinking about it. But the biggest thing that our clients and by virtue of serving them are is the issues of false identities, AI creating voice patterns, and
Mm.
creating the software. So you think you're talking. I hear stories from banking of somebody saying, well, they sent that out, but they thought they were talking to the CEO or the CFO, but it was a chatbot, and
Yes.
it just mimicked the voice of that, and the protection we put in place, so we're not sending out false ACHs or wires. We're keeping pace with the people that are using AI for not so positive purposes. Is that fair?
I have a personal friend who's a CEO of a large company who fell for it and was receiving those messages from their financial officer and thought they were true and activated some financial transactions. So yeah, we all
Yeah.
think we might be too smart,
Sometimes we
but
can bring it back, but sometimes by the time the controller or the VP of finance or whoever notices it, it's skipped five banks and it's now
mm,
somewhere in Eastern Europe. Good luck with that.
yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, Meg, can I ask you to go to the next one? Thank you. Um, Real short on this one. I think one of the things that is always the biggest response I get from kind of people that speak with about AI, that it's going to replace people. This is going to, it's going to, we're going to all be serving our cyber overlords in about 2 or 3 years. No, I mean, I think one of the misconceptions about AI is, what AI does. AI, and this is, and I'll preface it by saying all the comments today are not ODMB, they're me. Put that out there. But as I've looked at AI, and again, I sat for a 3-hour cert a few months ago rather, for IT specialist for AI, and I look at AI as a Labrador Retriever. It just wants to make you happy. That's all it wants to do. And so you will, if you put in something and get back a response, you have to check the responses. You got to make sure that it's right because yes, it's going out to the general population, but depending on the version of ChatGPT, for example, if you're using version 3 versus the version 5, version 3 makes a lot of stuff up, and they're called hallucinations. And it just wants to make it wants to come back with an answer. It wants to just answer, and I think that in itself is a challenge because it doesn't create anything. AI is not a creative source. Human beings create. AI does not. AI assimilates what other human beings have created, and so it is not there to be a replacement to employees. It really is there to help them free up from some of the mundane things so they can do more of the productive strategic things. And I think to do that, it needs data. It needs data in lots of formats. It needs it in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, images. It needs data to be able to look at what it has, make an analysis, and synthesize it back to a response. But it doesn't replace people, and I think that's one of the biggest concerns out there is that, and it's probably a misconception that it replaces people. People still create. So, Meg, can I ask you to go to the next one, please? This is a framework you can share with your IT people. I won't spend much time. This is really the one it says, when you're sitting down with your staff, you got to tell them that you're going to start using AI. You kind of have to have your IT background people kind of assess your current status. You got to then decide the one or two platforms you really want to use, whether that be Copilot or whatever, one of the other ones. And then I always say that I've had a nonprofit that wanted to do a very start of their plan, and they wanted to put a kind of an AI operator to answer the calls and direct the calls and respond to initial questions and that. And they were a modest size nonprofit, and I said that's really a big effort. When you're getting into algorithms and heuristic languages and responses, and I said you really need to think about whether you're going to do that or not. And they went ahead and they kind of launched something, and they got to find out that the Labrador Retriever of this wanted to please the person that was calling. And so, it would say, do you, can I get a refund on such and such? And the operator would, the AI voice would go, yes, we will give you a refund. Can I get a reimbursement on this cost? Yes, you can get a reimbursement on that cost. And can I schedule an appointment for 2:00 on Thursday with Bob? Yes, you have scheduled. And Bob had 5 meetings on Thursday, that time. And so and they kind of took it back, and they're going to have to retrain it again. But those are the things that you want to think about. Is start with small projects. Don't replace your receptionist or your assistant with an AI in full without testing little small bits of it. So I think it's that old thing. How do you eat an elephant, small bites,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
a long period of time. I think that's where you're going to get your best bang for your buck.
And also, Todd, as I look at this looks like something because I know that there's pushback sometimes from boards, and
Mm-hmm.
they may not be fluent with the practices of AI or the fact that it's being so used so commonly. And I know that there can often be hesitation. I think showing a framework and a way that the organization is now officially adopting it and institutionalizing the use of AI and those practices, I think could be very reassuring to boards that are saying, no, 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 you must write your own case for support. You must write your own grant. You must write your own donor solicitations and campaign materials. So I think that showing that there's actually a framework and a plan to direct this work is critical.
No, thank you. You're right. I mean, you got to have a tree to put the ornaments on. You're absolutely
Right,
right. Yes.
right, right. That's a good way to put it. Hmm.
Meg. And with that, like I say, data. Uh, One of the things that I see is that people have data all over the place. I mean, they have data on all their laptops. They have data on a server out there in the cloud. They have data sitting in some on a thumb drive. Um, One of the things is realizing what data do you need for the project you're going to do, and how to get that centralized into one place, and then getting the team to commit to not keeping kind of a side cache of data over here that only they have access, because a lot of times they'll say, well, that's kind of job security because I have my data over here and I know where it is. Well, actually, it's if you're doing this correctly, and you're saying this, for us to work efficiently and for you to work more efficiently, you've got to be on board with this. So you're actually kind of hurting your job by keeping it over there, not helping us. And so, I think that's kind of a trust issue, to kind of keep everybody on the same playing field and keep everybody on the same sheet of music. Um, a governance group within the organization, across departments, across levels, is important. I think that if the governance team internally is helping to keep the quality and the access and the centralization process going, it's better buy-in. Employees helping the employees, and so I think that's key. And then the integration, that's really, as I say, it's cross-functional. It's got to be across all the departments, and you keep this the safety security stuff where it needs to be, but most of the data we're talking about is member data, and the services that you're serving on that member, and that should be available to those that need to have it across cross functions. So I think that's key, is that the centralization of data allows the AI to do the best work for you. So
Question for you on the centralization as far as tools and platforms. So, oh, Jeremy, you and I were thinking the same thing. I just saw your question. What tools do you use to central? What type of tools do you use to manage data, and would Snowflake be a place to do so?
yeah, I think the common ones is SharePoint. I mean, SharePoint is
Mhm.
a very uh, you know, you know, Microsoft, Google, they all have a shared. I don't have a favored one, quite honestly,
Okay.
because I think they all. I liken it to banking. Any bank that comes up with a new product, by the end of the day, all the banks have that new product.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if somebody comes up with a new novel process within a day or two, all the other platforms, have something that's similar. I mean, look what happened with online, meeting platforms.
Mm.
At the beginning of it was only Zoom. Everybody was getting Zoom, and then within short order, you know, uh, multiple ones came out. Right, Google
Hmm.
had theirs, Microsoft had theirs. Uh,
Mm.
a couple other ones just came out of nowhere. And at the beginning they were all bad, but they
Okay.
got better over time. But I think same thing for these platforms. I would say, if you'd like, I can write a prompt, and it would give me an output on AI for that very question. So happy to do so.
So a follow-up to that, Jeremy says he's asking about data that's from the CRM. It's not in the Google Workspace. He's heard about data warehousing. Um, is
I,
it
I, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. I've got a slide coming up a little later that probably gets into CRM a bit better. So
okay?
I
And then
that's the one I will put on the parking lot.
okay, and then I have one more question on this. So
Sure.
thinking, for example, of Google and Google Drives, how much access or if any, do AI tools have to storage like Google or Or are they, I mean, I don't know. I worry about that.
Yeah, it's always good about password protection.
Mm,
From the software protection out there. I think that's part of the hygiene of AI and IT in
hmm
general, and
hmm
and uh, and I think people are, or at least what I find is people are less, uh, you know, uh, you know, annoyed about having to change their password. Certainly, multi-factor authentication, on your phone has become less of an annoyance to people because they hear all the stories of people that didn't do it. And
That's
so, I think, if anything, fear is a big motivator. So,
so. So, base in a nutshell, unless you provide the permissions, AI does not have access to your Google Drive.
uh, that is correct, and that's a
Okay.
I'll tell you, I had a list of maybe, half a dozen, good and bad stories. I'll add one here, a manager of a company. Uh, this came to me from a professor of AI at one of the universities, and this manager wanted to run more efficiently in his department. And if AI has as much freedom or restriction as you give it, and so that's why
Mm,
setting those barriers is important. And he wanted to run his department more efficiently, and come to find out it was reaching out into other departments beyond his because he didn't keep the constraints of the task for the AI, not unlike an employee. And we've had employees that kind of take a little bit more uh, flexibility in their job responsibilities than
hmm
than the AI is going saying, okay, there's data over there. I have access to data over there that might help me, but I don't know unless I go there. And so
Right.
you just have to put the
Okay.
barriers on AI that we
Okay.
put on employees and saying these are places you cannot go.
Yes.
And
Okay.
so yeah, I mean
Great. Thank you.
that's good. It's all rules based. So
Yep.
there. This is just really we talked about the fundraising and donor management. This is really I think one of the key things, and this is really being used a lot right now uh, by colleges and universities for one. It's really predicting. Uh, they're looking and you can do the same for really any nonprofit. They're looking in their case, who's uh, graduating with what degrees, what jobs are they getting out in the market. Are they, they're scraping off of LinkedIn profiles, seeing if somebody got a raise, somebody got a promotion, somebody got a recognition. um, Using all that, they can then use AI in their uh, publications to personalize. They're sending out 10,000 letters saying "Dear occupant." Their
hmm
success rate might not be as good, and everybody's kind of pulled back the curtain on dear Kirsten, dear Todd, Eduardo, we want you to consider giving us some money, right? But
mm
if they can put a blurb in that first paragraph of something that recently Eduardo post, somewhere, and it could go out there to, the social media, and they're not trying to be invasive. They're trying to enhance their numbers and be,
That's
kind
right.
of, if you've got to stack this high of letters, they want to be somewhere up here, right? That's
Yeah.
where they want to be
Yeah.
toward that top. And so I think they can personalize their communications, electronic communications, paper, the correspondence you get in the mail. Uh, so that you're more likely to open it, read it, think about it, donate. And I think
hmm
same thing for any nonprofit is that how do you personalize this just enough that you can, and using the public sources out there and the sources that your members give you, because they can,
hmm
they're providing you a lot of data anyway to
hmm
personalize communications out to them. And I think one of the outcomes of that is to keep them from doing two things. One, donor burnout. I mean, people just stop wanting to, and I think, if you haven't heard from them in a year or two, it's not because your mail isn't getting to them. They're just not going to get, emails aren't being opened. And I think the other
Right.
thing is how do finding out from them how often they want to be contacted. How do they want to be
Hmm.
contacted? If they
Hmm.
want to be contacted once a year, the AI can help you manage that and keep the personalization. So I think that's one thing that as you're looking that AI platforms can help you with is that how do you maintain, because you don't have, if you have I mean I have one nonprofit that has 6,000 members across the United States in the world. They can't keep in contact with all of them, but AI can. AI can track incoming data that these members are posting, and say, okay, Dr. Such and such over in Belgrade just
Hmm.
published this. You know, well, so AI can create a message out to him, have staff just look at it briefly for style, and ship it out. It really, you can be very proactive if you want to be.
I am insanely intrigued by this.
Yeah.
So, is this something we talked about universities, sort of big shops, as we call them? So, is this something that small to medium-sized nonprofits can implement as well through some of the regular AI tools? I mean,
I
it sounds
think,
like this is a part two. This would be another
yeah,
session to go do a deep
I,
dive, but just is that something they
I
can
would say,
take in?
looking at those companies that are running CRMs right now,
Mm-hmm.
they're already, I've heard they're
Mm,
looking at it. So all this is scalable,
okay.
whether it's, that's the thing, whether it's 10 or 10,000, it costs them nothing because the
Mm-hmm.
same tool, you look at, for my universe, ACH. The
Mm-hmm.
ACH I send out for a local or regional nonprofit is the same cost to for me to process as it
Yes.
is for a large national. You know, so same thing with this. It doesn't cost them. They've already developed the product and the platform. I would reach out to CRM providers and say, what are you doing to implement AI for personalization? I guarantee you that they're working on that because
Awesome.
there's a foot race right now. So
Okay. Thank you.
great. Uh, Mick, can I ask you to go to the next one, please? This is kind of the efficiency. I think so we talked about automation. We've talked about a little bit about the risk. I mean, with financial institutions, AI bots are always scanning for anomalies. We do that all the time. We're using, and other banks are using AI to really look across transactions and identify things that just don't look right. I mean that's really one of the benefits of AI. AI, if you looked at like the PDF platforms, the problem with PDF sometimes is that if you're trying to with some PDFs, or you couldn't read the data, right? You couldn't pull the data out. It didn't read text, right? You'd say, can you take the words on this JPEG and make it into a Word document? The answer was no. That's not what I do. And so you get frustrated because you had some words on a JPEG or a PDF, and your work, Microsoft Word just kind of threw its hands up, said, can't read that. Well, the thing is, AI can read it. It has no problem. You
Hmm.
can send it an image with words that are pixel, and it reads it. And it has absolutely no problem doing that, and then putting it in any kind of format you want. You can say, read this, take these numbers. I had a friend of mine, because I play with IT as my golf game. Yeah, I get my friends that say stump the star. He sent me an American flag that had all hexadecimal, had binary ones and zeros. It says, here's a image. Can you put this into words? What is it saying? You know, and I dumped it into an AI. I said, take this binary message, put it, use ASCII to put it into alphanumerics, and give me the 2 seconds later, it says, it gave me hello world. And I sent it back
Wow.
to him, and it doesn't care. It
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
and here is the interesting thing. What for security is, when you have that thing where it says, put in these numbers and letters, or
Hmm.
check the bicycles and that kind of stuff. That's really another security against fraud AI, because
Mm.
fraud AI can read numbers and letters and images and that, but human beings are creative, and so that's why some of that stuff is there. The fraud protection that they put in there, that third or second layer, is to prevent AI fraud. So I think
Mm.
those things, because those are the things that limit AI at this time. So
What's interesting to me too is I had just learned this from a LinkedIn course that I took about your banner and your about section. Because LinkedIn, if you're just typing in information, does not allow you to bold or change the font, italicize, anything like that. Well, I learned through AI, I can ask AI to give me the Unicode text and plug that into LinkedIn, and it boldens it, it italicizes. I mean, incredible, incredible.
yeah,
Before you would have felt so restricted and you're like, oh, I can only put in plain text, but there are ways around it now. Yeah, it's
yeah.
amazing.
There's all kinds of workarounds, and
Hmm.
the last one is grant management. Just had lunch last week with the president of a nonprofit, and she does animal rescues, and she's gone into large animal rescues. And the interesting thing is that she wanted to know what grants were out there. And and she let AI. She put in the prompts. She went out there, and it was finding just these obscure, but she was eligible for these grants that a grant manager just doesn't have the time, energy, resources to go out and check the world,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
she was able to apply for grants that had no idea that were out there. So I think that's one thing. It is open to the large
Yes,
universe. So
yes.
for grant identification and grant approvals and applications, uh, AI is a great way to utilize it, because then you can build the parameters of the grant request into your response, and improve your chances. But the first thing is you got to know the grant exists, and AI can
Hmm.
help you with that. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Meg, can I ask you to put the next one up? There we go. Um, and I think we've kind of touched on a lot of these. I think one is volunteer matching. So volunteer organizations, Points of Light, others like that. Um, you know, Being able to use large databases of preferences on both the organization that's looking for volunteers as well as the volunteer pools. Often, I'll have a company that has a volunteer organization, in the company, and they show up to a volunteer activity and it really doesn't match what they want to do, what their volunteers want to do. AI is great for matching skill sets and interests of both the organizations as well as the volunteers. It's just creating database that's putting together. It will come back and tell you what uh, you know what individuals in the organization that wants to volunteer, and what opportunities for the volunteer organizations are open, and match those very beautifully. And I think that's one key. So you have the right volunteers showing up with the right attitude.
Hmm.
So I think that um, resource allocations, um, if you're looking at things like emergency FEMA, and organizations like food banks, matching resources with need. And I think therein lies another benefit is you're not giving resources to people that don't have the most need or don't need that product. You come home with stuff you don't need, but but also you identify people that have a deficit of need, and you're able to fill your resources that way. You also then can go out to your funding sources or your donation sources and say these are the foodstuffs that we're short on, so that they can be more efficient in their donations. And I think
When
here,
you,
this 24-hour support, the chatbot. I mentioned the organization that the chatbot was a little too helpful, but if you keep in mind that the chatbot should have an ability to say, I don't know that. Let me have somebody get back to you. I think that having that 24-hour chatbot a little more productive, or saying and directing people. I think the one thing that people hate is you're in phone queue hell. Where
Mhm.
dial hit 6, hit 9, hit 4, hit 5. And and suddenly you're back to the original prompt, right? Having AI be able to say, I need to go to this department or this person and direct them there using voice. People are much more easy to say that they're understood. Um, so I think having a chat bot that acts as that intermediary, and really directs people. I know that a lot of financial, like the Fidelities of the world, those they're using it pretty successfully to get people to the right place without having but going through the keyboard. You can speak with language and get to the person you need. And if it doesn't know, it does a good job of kicking you over to the general population answer machine, and the person that is the human being. But it doesn't try 9 times to get the right answer.
Mhm.
So
I worked on a project a few years ago where we implemented AI chatbots. I don't recall it being too terribly expensive to add that feature in. It was not
no,
expensive, and we provided the chatbot with all of the information, and people were so happy because they could get answers immediately to some of the questions that they felt, really required an in-person phone call with a human being. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. As long as you add a default in there, though, I don't know. you know,
Right. Okay.
that's the
Fair
key.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, because if I don't know, an AI chatbot will come back with their best guess, which could
Right,
be
right, right,
totally
right.
wrong.
Okay. Fair enough. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, there we go. Um, this is kind of some of the risk. One is, I think, you need to have some discipline within the organization of what are the acceptable AI platforms you want your employees to use. And I think uh, you know there are some that you'll decide we're only going to use this one, okay, and so everybody's going to use this one. And 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 I think you can't have somebody out there, if you decided, you pick the one, ChatGPT, Copilot, Broke, whatever your organization decides, everybody's on that sheet of music, and so it's not like if everybody's using Microsoft Office and a couple of your employees are using Google Docs, there's a mismatch.
Mhm.
Not only is there a mismatch in platforms, there's a mismatch in risk, because if you're managing your security and your cyber to this platform, and somebody's out there kind of crazy Ivan, doing their own platform or bringing it into your organization, they're bringing those possible risks into the organization. And it's and I liken it to I have a number of companies that do coding, and coders are notorious for stealing code from somewhere else and dropping it into their programs. Well, AI is out there. You say, find me a bridge between this thing and this thing, it will do it, but it may have just taken that last piece from Eastern Europe, and suddenly everybody who knows you drop that in has a backdoor into your data. And so you got to have kind of a firm handshake in the employees that if we're only going to use this platform. And so
Mhm.
and with it,
Mhm.
the other thing is what I mentioned before, is that you pick too large of projects, but also you take small projects and you don't scale them. And so they kind of never get their full potential. So I think you want to have things that are strategic, and you have this structure to support it, but things that can grow to be better use and better efficiencies to the organization. So I always think you want to go with pilots that have some scalability. That's my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hey, do we have another one, please? And getting started, this is I think the page you can kind of give to your IT personnel, but they can do a readiness assessment. As you might assume, AI can help them with that. You give them the data, they can do that. And like I said, pick some low hanging fruit. Whether that be your call center, whether it be a little bit of small section of your donor pool, going out to look at grants. Just pick a small thing and just put your toe in the water. Governance team we talked about, and in training. I think one of the things and what's interesting is training is very inexpensive, if not free. All these platforms they want you to use their programs, and so there's training that doesn't get into your systems, but there's lots of training out there. And I said, and like I say, you don't have to get an associate degree or a bachelor's. This is just tools, and just it's and that's really AI. It's just an electronic camera. That's all it is. And the training out there, basic training on how to use it. One of the best trainings, Google has a certification in writing prompts, and the prompt is really where everything starts. That's the creative phase, writing prompts, and you can get an AI certification in prompt writing from Google, and it really is worth your while, because the prompt is so important now that colleges and universities have kind of put their hands up and put the white flag on whether or not the student is using AI. They've given that one up. And they say, yes, we know they're using AI. They're going to use AI. They're gonna record my lecture, and they're gonna put it in AI, and they're gonna synthesize study notes off of that. They're not gonna listen to my lecture. And in fact, one professor I know requires his students to not only submit the paper, because the thing about submitting the paper, that he could get 30 papers all written by AI, and if you ran it through a plagiarism check, it will say each of them were original thought. That has no plagiarism. So it writes original thought every time. And so he said he kind of gave up on that. Now he requires them to give him the prompt, and part of their grade is quality of the prompt. And so the paper's fine, but send me your prompt so I can see the quality. Yeah.
So it's the inquiry piece. It's the student's inquiry and investigative ability, as opposed to finished product. That is interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a terrific guy, really good personality. But he says, I read the prompts, and I say, is this a B prompt, a C prompt, is it an A prompt? What is the before he even looks at the quality of the paper, he looks at the prompts and it says, this prompt could have been better. This was not directed the right way, too broad. So I think the key thing here is they're going to change the nature, if not already, of higher education across platforms. And so the math department and engineering departments of these universities, you can give AI a pretty hairy equation, and it
Hmm.
solves it. It looks at
Hmm.
it and says, "Oh, the answer's five." Save your paper. The answer's five.
Yeah.
And so, I think, that's really, if you're going to do any initial training, I think the first step, it's like learning, how to read. The first step
Hmm.
is learning the alphabet, right? The
Hmm.
first step I always suggest everybody do, take a couple lessons in prompting. You know,
Mm.
if you do great, great. If you don't do great, who cares? It's not, prompting is not your day job, but
Hmm.
just learning how to swing a hammer, even if you do it poorly, gives you comfort with using a hammer.
Question for you on prompts. So the prompts that one finds, for example, in ChatGPT that have already been created by other people versus your own, what is your recommendation there?
Yeah, you know, I guess I don't use other people's prompts because they don't understand my problem.
Mm.
And so, and using somebody, I will often have AI, um, you know, and I'll be honest, this presentation, I prepare for style, but all these slides were done by AI in
Hmm.
about 5 seconds, including the images, you know, because it can do it better than I can.
Hmm.
I told it what kind of format I want, and it just does it. And so, uh, I don't use other people's prompts just because I know what I want,
Yeah. Yeah.
and prompting is not a one-time event. And
Right.
if we have a chance, I send Meg some of the images I've created with AI, and I'll give you some fun there. But last slide, and then we'll close this up. And Meg, if you can move that over to the other thing. So this is, and I'll have Kristen. None of my stuff's copyrighted. You can go ahead and send these slides out to everybody. I don't care.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
uh, but this is just kind of an if you looked at routine activity, this is across a
Wow.
broad spectrum. You're reducing the routine administration by, call it 25, down to 25%. Critical efforts by the staff goes up dramatically. This is the kind of stuff you can, once you get used to it. It's like riding a bike. Once you're used to doing it, you go to AI for efficiencies on stuff. I use AI all the time. My team laughs that I have Todd bots, and so Todd bots are out there doing stuff for me. And so, yeah, and you don't have to be technically savvy. You can all learn this very, very, very easily. So with that, the last slide is just kind of embrace it, go forward, have fun with it. You got to enjoy it. You got to have fun with it. So
Yeah.
the last thing for
I have
fun,
a
you go ahead.
I have a quick win from your one of your prior comments there. A quick win that I really like using AI for, especially right now. We're at end of year. Everybody's doing end of year fundraising, communicating with major donors who have yet to give their significant gift for end of year. And I will just feed everything I know about that donor, about my last conversations with them, about their giving history, and ask AI to give me my script for the phone call.
Yeah, yeah,
And whether
exactly.
I follow it directly or not, but it's so nice to have a guide that has been tailored and that reminds me that we talked about their daughter's wedding 8 months
Yeah,
ago. And I mean, things that, I have notes everywhere, or I've put them in a CRM and I can download them and compile them and use that so that because, we're not perfect and we want it to have that human quality. I don't
yeah,
want this very rote message that I'm giving to every single person. So, but I can't possibly store all that information in my head and the time it would take for me to sit down and make my notes and go back and look through everything. So, I think that's another quick win that we can be using, especially right now as we ramp up to December 31st. Yeah.
well, good. Well, permit me before I go to these images. Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing that I did want to share, and this, Kirsten, is that uh, I and ODMB, we don't charge service charges for nonprofit banking, and that includes
Yes. Thank
regular
you for
banking.
mentioning that.
Yeah, so no service charges, just basic, all the online banking, all the treasury services. We do it all for free. So if there's nonprofits out there that reach out to me, Kirsten can give you my contact information. And if free, and we have all the services that all the other banks have. I mean, those platforms have become ubiquitous. So we have FIS, and it's the same FIS platform that all the big banks have. We just choose not to just service charge them. So if that's of interest. So, Meg, you can put those images up there. I'll give you some fun stuff here at the end. I do this for my friends. So if you look at these two pictures, and it might be hard to see if you have, but I don't know if you can put the first one up, and then we'll look at the second one. This is where I talk about iterative changes on AI. My friends who Virginia Tech, and my bride went to Virginia Tech, and so I created. They're going to the Tax Layer Bowl this year. So and they come in on the field during the start of the game with this guy on a black charger with his sword up and that, and that's how they start their game. Well, I had him coming in on an alligator. And, when you look at it, this is why you got to look at these images closely. So if you look at the first one, look at the second one, some of you may notice a difference. And this is where AI kind of needs to be corrected. On the first one, if you look closely, he has two left arms. So, this to get to this picture, to this level, it probably took me asking AI to make slight changes to my original thought about 6 or 7 times. And you just got to say, look at the picture. I said, he's got two left arms, get him one left arm. Boom, the next one, last version left that came out. So, and then, because the holidays are coming up and I'm a big fan of the Grinch, it has nothing to do with being a banker. There's the Virginia Tech coffee cup, and then to be fair, because I went to Tech, you go to the next one, all my Tech friends get the Virginia Tech cup. So,
I love that.
Yeah. And lastly, those of you know that football, we have the Hokey Bird. I told AI, give me a Halloween theme, this back in October, where it put a cartoon version of the Hokey Bird inside a village, that's haunted. And it just pops it out like this.
Wow.
It just does it. So this is the fun stuff you can also do with AI.
Yeah.
So when you want to do fun things to put in your newsletters, have AI just make up an image, and if you don't like it, just tell it make these changes, and it doesn't care. It has no feelings. It's a Labrador Retriever. It wants to make you happy.
Now, would you put a disclaimer in a newsletter saying generated by AI?
Why? It was created by me. Everybody knows these things
from a nonprofit, if they were sending things out in a newsletter that they had
but
I don't know. Does it matter?
this
I guess it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because it's my creation.
Okay.
It's not, those images did not exist in the universe before I made them. It's like an artist. An artist doesn't say, it was made by such and just paintbrush.
But using the logo of an organization, or using, I guess if it's done by the organization, then it's theirs.
Yeah.
They've created it. Okay.
Yeah. Right. It's like if you had a designer create these images. Yeah. It's been tested. I have a friend of mine who's a graphics guy, and what's interesting with the creative process, you can take an image, and if you change it, it becomes your creative product. And so if you want to say yes, it was created by Chabby, you can, but you don't need to. It's not necessary, because it's like saying you create a Word document and say this was created by Microsoft Word. It doesn't matter. You don't do that. This is just using a hammer. It doesn't say this is a Stanley hammer. This house is built by a Stanley hammer. No. So yeah, you can I create this stuff, and it's my creative stuff. And so it doesn't need, because it's you don't have to say whether you use Google Docs or you use Microsoft Word. Same thing here.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Wow.
Thank
you so much.
Well,
thank you for your wisdom.
I'm probably 2 minutes over the time allotment.
Yeah, we're
sorry.
top of the hour, but thank you, Todd. Very, very helpful. I think this is kind of the infrastructure piece that we all need to be reminded of because everyone just jumps in enthusiastically and gives it a shot. So I'm going to share, let's see if I can share the correct one. So this is, am I sharing the correct screen? I hope so.
Yes.
This is Todd's information. If you'd like to reach out to him, remember that their bank is extremely nonprofit friendly, which is why we are uh, becoming better and better friends. We want to offer nonprofits the referrals to the greatest opportunities for them to really do well, and banking is critical for that. So feel free to reach out for Todd. Reach out to Todd if you have anything further. And then our next webinar is January 13th at 11 Eastern. That'll be Sharon LaRouche, who's the former president and CEO of 211 Palm Beach and Treasure Coast. That's going to be a really fun conversation. And then just a reminder that we are still helping organizations. There is still time to do your end of year campaigns. If you're not doing it and you need help, reach out to us. But please make sure that you are making every effort to push through to December 31st. And we know that with AI, we can make this so much easier. You can customize your communications, you can segment really easily and make sure that those donor solicitations and campaigns are very tailored. But just let us know if we can help you in any way. And we'll see you next Tuesday. And I'm sorry we ran out of time for questions. If anyone wants to stay on for a moment, if you have a minute, Todd, let me just take a look and see if there's anything else. All right, I don't think we had anything else. That was great. Thank you so much, Todd. Wonderful having you
Thank
with
you. I'm
us.
honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Pleasure to have you. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in January. Have a wonderful holiday season and a fabulous new year. I know it's going to be an incredible 2026 for all of you. And we're here to support you every step of the way. So we'll see you in January. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.